Good morning this Sunday, week 4 of the NFL season. Prop till you drop. NFL prop bets with the fantasy football degenerate, Jen Ryan. How are you today, Jen?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Let me go and make sure we're on Periscope here.
Sure. I want to tell you once we make sure we're on Periscope, I want to tell you about a terrible beat that I had last week. It was a brutal loss on a big parlay.
Oh, really?
Yes. Let me open this up real quick. And there's a little bit of football karma involved in this. I think because the bet involved the Eagles, and I'm a big Cowboys fan. So I think the Eagles intentionally ruined my weekend. So let me give you that one real quick. Just want to here we go. All right, so it was a 4-leg parlay, and one bet is hard enough to hit, let alone 4. So I parlayed 4 overs. Chicago Falcons over 47, that hit. Rams Bills over 46.5, hit. Texans Steelers over 46, hit. Bengals Eagles, the line was 46.5. The game resulted in 46 points total, so I missed it by a half a point. And the Eagles punted to tie. Had they just been aggressive and tried to win that game, maybe I wouldn't still be crying about this week.
Yeah. How much would it have been, if you want to say?
I don't mind saying. This was a scratch-off, as I like to call it. So I just put $40 on it, and it was plus 13. It was to win like $866 or something like that. It was too much money for me to be like, oh shucks. And again, it's because they played to tie that game, not to win. And I'm just like,
well, it was,
of course,
the guy got offsides. It was a 58, 59 yard field goal. But when you get to 64, that's the NFL record, if I recall correctly. So anyway,
to tie. You played a tie.
That doesn't make sense.
But we got to move on to week 4.
All right, so in week 4, do you want to start with quarterbacks?
Yeah, there's a few quarterback props I'm looking at. So I've been looking at some touchdown props, just overs on actual touchdowns. And one that, because I like to tie it all into fantasy, and I'm having some streaming issues in one of my home leagues with Cam Newton as my quarterback, so I'm kind of looking into the waiver wire. I was looking at the lines this weekend and trying to find a quarterback that's going to throw for at least 2 touchdowns. And I stumbled upon Matthew Stafford's passing line. Passing touchdowns, 1.5. They're hosting the Saints. It is projected to be a high-scoring game. There are of the 13 games this weekend, there's 7 games that are projected to go over 50 points. And this game is one of them. So right away, I'm looking at the quarterback on the team that is the underdog. Game script, going to be playing from behind. Book has it at 1.5. Staff's thrown for 2 touchdowns in his previous 2 games. Kenny Galladay's back, full health. That automatically raises Matthew Stafford's ceiling for me. And again, home underdogs. Matthew Stafford's not one of these check down guys. He's constantly taking shots down the field. And those with guys like not just Galladay, but Marvin Jones can result in touchdowns. He's throwing it for like 400 air yards a game. That's something you want to see out of a quarterback. And
Swift too is not getting a lot of playing time, but when he does, he'll catch the ball too, so he could help in that venue and maybe sneak a touchdown. Yeah,
sure,
that's a good one. That's ironic because, talking with John Alaub on our DFS last night on our show, that was one of his, predictions, is he's looking for Stafford as a good cash game. So nice correlation there.
I feel even better about it now that John likes him.
Well, you're looking
it's
for
always
odd scenarios.
Yeah, it's always reassuring. And other touchdowns. Russell Wilson. I mean, they have his line. There's actually I'm tying this into a big parlay that I've put that the sportsbook is offering this week. So Russell Wilson. Can he throw for 3 touchdowns this week? I do believe he can. The big joke on the internet with Russell Wilson is let Russ cook, right? They're sick of the run game out in Washington, and they just want Russell Wilson throwing the ball, and they have the line at 2.5 touchdowns for him. And again, you look at these receivers, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. I mean, Metcalf is so physical at the point of the ball. We've seen him catch these huge, deep touchdowns. I don't see why Russell Wilson can't throw for 3 touchdowns. It's something I'm parlaying also with. Finally, in Chicago, they've turned the ball over to Nick Foles, right? He's another one. He's part of this 3 touchdown quarterback parlay I'm looking at. Now, what gives me a lot of hesitation in this one, which is why it's such a long shot bet, is the point total in that game is only 43 points, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not projected to have a ton of scoring. With that said, I mean, he's coming out with like his first full start. We already see what it was very clear to me Nick Foles is the better quarterback as soon as they gave him the ball last week. It's true though. It's true. I mean, 3 touchdowns. It's rich. It's a big line, but that's why it's such a long shot. So the third quarterback on this house special that the sportsbook is offering for 3 touchdowns with Russell Wilson and Foles is Deshaun Watson. This game, 53.5 points in it. The money's coming in on the under, but I don't really care. 53 points is still a lot. And this Vikings secondary that used to be this like vaunted Viking secondary has just been pretty porous through 3 weeks. And again, it's a long shot bet. It pays plus 2,200. So just like if you threw $10 on that, Emil, you're looking at $220.
Yeah.
So it's a super, super long shot, but I like it, and I like all these guys in fantasy this week. So
yeah, again, John under DFS had Watson as one of his favorite players, so that's nice. What is Foles' over and under? Is it like 1.5 touchdowns or something like that?
So in this parlay, it's 2.5. But if we go to the actual game and we find his prop, it is 1 moment, please.
So he's got to throw 3 touchdowns. Does that include running, or is that just throwing?
Passing. Oh, they're very clear. It's passing.
Well, Foles,
so
he doesn't run that much anyway.
Watson
but could be a problem. Watson could run one in.
Well, of course, you're going to lose your mind if he throws for 2 and runs one in.
Yeah,
right? That's going to ruin your day. But just his individual player prop for Foles, it's 1.5. Okay. So it's like if they expect him maybe for 2 touchdowns, I just need that 3rd touchdown. And again, the line in this game is weird, that 40-ish point total line, because I feel like both of these quarterbacks, like Rivers and Foles, this could get into a throwing match fairly quickly. So
now, on these parlays, not to sound stupid, but I'm pretty good at it, can you do an under, or do you have to do overs on all these?
Oh, no. So if you build the parlay yourself, you can do it however you want.
This is a special parlay?
Yeah, they call it a house special. It's for suckers like me, Emil, where you see this giant payout, and you're like, and you're like, oh, why can't they all throw for 3 touchdowns? But I look at it but it's not like inconceivable to me, So that's kind of why I've been suckered into that possible sucker bet. But yeah, when you're, and building parlays is a lot of fun, especially the more you add, the bigger the line gets, obviously, because the harder it gets to hit it all. But, we talked about this a little bit last week. I like looking for those running backs with low reception lines and try to build parlays off of those. But you can certainly cook unders into your parlays. I tend to stay away from that, but I'll bet an under if it makes sense. I just hate doing it. I just really hate doing it.
You want score. It's a fantasy.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Yeah, it's like there's so much of a fantasy mindset behind it too, and it's like, why would I bet for a player to do,
poorly,
not hit his ceiling? Yeah, of course. Of course. Yeah.
So what's next?
So receivers, I'm torn by a couple receivers, particularly the Houston Texans receivers, because I really like that Deshaun Watson prop this week. So I'm really just torn. I've been looking at the yardage for all three and the reception lines, because it's like Cobb seems to be doing the most production, Fuller when he's healthy, but I was looking on our site at the target shares, and it's Brandon Cooks who's getting the biggest target share out of the receivers at 20%. So it's like he's getting the most opportunity, but Cobb scored the touchdown, so he's getting the most points. And then Fuller really, for me, is the best receiver when he's on the field and he's not being taken out of the game. So I'm kind of lumping teammates for our receiver category this week, but I'm looking at Cobb, the over on the line on his receiving yards, 42.5. Cooks, they have at 56.5, and then Fuller, they have at 64.5. So, the book, in a way, likes them in order of Cobb, Cooks, Fuller, whereas I kind of have them in my own mental rankings. I've got Cobb a little bit above Cooks, just because even though Cooks is seeing that opportunity, it's just not materializing the way it is with Cooks. And then I go look at the receptions. They've got 4.5 for Cooks and Fuller, but just 3.5 for Cobb. So and the reception line on Cobb is plus 106. So that's sort of underdog, positive money. Cooks, it's plus 107. So it's like, look, now I'm in my head. I'm like putting together like a line projection for all these players, right? And I'm trying to decide out of these Texans receivers which one I really like prop wise. And for me, it's really Randall Cobb over the receptions, over the yards, and Randall Cobb to score. I know I'm throwing a lot on Randall Cobb there, and it feels like I could be chasing last week's touchdown. But that's just, after kind of analyzing that whole receiver core, look, of course, Fuller's the guy who I'm playing in fantasy over everybody else, but I like these Cobb props in particular. I'm curious, Emil, where you land on the Houston receivers this week.
Well, I think it's a good way to analyze. I like what you've said there. Obviously, playing against Minnesota, that's going to help. And Cobb is, he's not going to be double teamed like one of the other two may be. I think that's a good bet. Cook scares me. He seems to be scared to catch balls. I think that's kind of mean. But how many teams has he bounced around on? I mean, New England only kept him for a year. Then they're like, let's get rid of this guy. Talented, but he just doesn't seem to have the confidence and the guts to really hang in there and catch a few extra balls in the game. He seems to be avoiding catches. So I think Cobb's a good idea. I like that. Fuller, we'll see how Fuller ends up by the end of the year. If this guy continues to this injury issue, remind me in 2021 not to draft this guy so much.
But it's so hard with him, right? Because when he's healthy, he's phenomenal. I mean, that first game, everyone was like, DeAndre Hopkins, who? Know? And then when you see him taking himself out of the game, my brain screams soft tissue. It's is it a hammy? Like, what is it? So yeah, it's kind of, and with Cooks, I'm so with you. He's one of these players that every year, we tout him, and it's Cook. He's so good. He's so good. They're trading him for firsts. He's so good. And it just doesn't materialize. So I have a hard time betting money on him, which is why I was really looking at Cobb. And again, in season long leagues, even cash, I would say it's fuller, but I think I like Cobb sort of as a dart throw if you're desperate with some of these games that are being postponed. Again, you're depending on the touchdown, but I do like Cobb as like an interesting flex play this week if he's a guy who's sitting on your waiver wire.
Oh, by the way, Devontae Parker, who has been injured, and he's had 10 days off because he was on Thursday the week before. He's off the injury report. Pretty good matchup. Do you have the prop bets for
that? Yeah, I'll pull that up right now. And I have Devontae Parker in I believe the flex leagues, and I haven't played him yet because he just hasn't been. Here we go. Okay, so they have the line for his receptions at 4.5. It's at -134, so they sort of expect it. Oh. And then there's an interesting Devontae prop I'll get down to. Hold on, let's find his receiving yards first. Okay. 62.5. Okay, so you figure if the line hits, it's 5 catches for 63 yards. It's not a terrible day for him, especially if he, of course, scores a touchdown. Yeah. Fun prop: player to have the most receiving yards, Tyler Lockett or Devontae Parker.
Huh. That would be tempting. What's the number on that?
You'd get paid more money if it's Parker. Yeah. It's -155 for Lockett, +124 for Parker. But the reason it's interesting, and the reason I kind of almost like Devontae the underdog here, is because if I go back and I look at the individual lines for the receivers here for Seattle, they're really bumping up DK Metcalf. They've got the line for DK Metcalf at 70.5. They've got Lockett at 73.5. So, it used to be Metcalf was like the home run hitter, and Lockett was the receptions and the receiving yards guy. But Metcalf is starting to kind of get his in the yardage game too. So, the difference between Parker and Lockett line wise on the book is 11 yards. I mean, you could argue that's one first down catch, for Devontae Parker. That's interesting.
Well, and I like that he's unfortunately, it sounds like they're predicting Parker to have a good game too. So, it's not a wow, I got to make this bet, but it is intriguing. That's for sure.
Yeah, and if you're worried about playing him because you haven't been able to play him because he's been dinged up and you have hesitation, and you're really, really in good shape at receiver in your fantasy league, then don't play him, but maybe bet his props. That way, if he has the good game, you still benefit from it.
That's a good way to do it. I like that.
Yeah. And then there's one not sleeper receiver, but I feel like a little bit of an under the radar guy who he's probably on people's radars because he scored in garbage time last week. But Hunter Renfrow. He's got this slot corner matchup against Taron Johnson, and Taron Johnson's not a very good slot corner for the Bills. And just in terms of wide receiver cornerback matchups this week per PFF, he's got a top 10 matchup, as does Cobb, who we talked about earlier.
Yeah, that's good.
And with that Bills defense, Carr might be checking down a little bit to him. So I'm looking at Renfrow, and the book is certainly adjusted to his usage. His yards are at 60.5. His receptions are at 5.5. So I don't know. I'm tempted to almost throw bigger money on Renfro's receiving line because 6 catches for him pays out at +118, and I feel very confident in that number hitting. Curious your opinion on Renfrow this week.
Well, yeah, he is another guy, that's obviously with all the injuries there in Oakland, the Raiders in Las Vegas. He's definitely a guy who can come off, and certainly I like him. We don't have him rated too high, but, it's kind of hard to rate him ultra high. But, yeah, he's definitely got the opportunity. I I wish these darn casinos weren't picking up on some of these things and giving us a better opportunity. But 60 some odd yards, that's very doable, very doable. I worry a bit about the catches, but still, that's still proportionally about the same. So I like that one. I definitely like Hunter.
I think if we could somehow get out of the first quarter of that game, like if he could somehow just get 3 catches in the first quarter, I'm going to feel really, really good about that. Sometimes I have a bad habit of doing that. Truthfully, I break it down like that. I'm like, well, 3 catches really isn't that much. So if he can get that in the first quarter, now he's halfway there, and he's got 3 quarters to get the rest.
You want to have a good start. You want to have a good start. They are playing at home. That probably helps a lot, I think, especially with the
home underdogs too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Hunter Renfrow last year, you probably recall, he had 2 or 3 games where he caught like a 50-yard pass, and if he could pull off one of those, obviously that'll make the difference as far as the yardage is concerned.
Oh yeah. That's it's a lot of fun to look at these. We can even talk about John Brown in this game. It's a lot of fun to look at these. Like we call in best ball those Deshaun Jackson types, those guys who just catch the bombs. It's fun to look at theirs because they legitimately could get it on one play. A Deshaun Jackson, a John Brown, a Robbie Anderson. John Brown's line in this game, 53.5. I mean, it's very likely one catch for him. So that's another interesting one.
And he's been hurt, so he's a guy you're forgetting. The line may be a little lower on him. So that kind of helps too.
And then, of course, in this game, we have a few of those fun player to have the most receiving yards.
Oh.
And they're actually, they typically put the 2 top receivers up against each other in those props. They've got Renfrow and Diggs lumped in here together, so it looks like the book is giving a ton of respect to Hunter Renfrow this week. Wow. And player to have the most receiving yards, Renfrow or Diggs. Those are your 2, top guys, obviously. And then they have Aguilar or Cole Beasley. I like Cole Beasley there. And then they also have Darren Waller or John Brown. So it's these are fun choices in this game that the book is offering.
So what are you thinking on those?
I'm thinking. So it's like I want to say Renfrow, right? But then it's like in your mind, you're like, are you like from a fantasy perspective? I'm like, that's crazy. We're talking about a bona fide wide receiver 1 and some slot guy that was picked up off of waivers last week. But I kind of like it. I kind of like that prop for Renfrow to maybe have more receiving yards than Diggs. Is it the most sound one? No, I think it's a little bit of a home run, but I'm not scared to do it. I don't think it's completely out of the question.
As far as what you make?
Plus 107. So it's almost even money, right? Yeah. It's like if you bet $50 on it, for example, you'd win like 52. You basically double your money on something like that. Yeah. Aguilar over Beasley.
Yes. Aguilar.
Yeah, Aguilar over Beasley is only plus 118. I don't trust Nelson Aguilar with anything at all.
What was the third one you said? Waller. What's the numbers on
Waller and John Brown. Yeah, Waller's minus 125, so there's a little bit of a juice cooked in there. Yeah. But John Brown, basically even money. We'll find a fun long shot before this is over too. Take that.
Those are
curious. First to score, Devin Singletary plus 750. You kind of like that. First to score, Josh Allen, who can very easily run the ball into the end zone.
What's
plus 1,000? Plus 1,000. So that's turning $10 into 100 if you feel like doing it.
That was a thing in my book.
Those are so much fun. They're so much fun because if you're just confident somebody on the Bills is going to score first, or you can even pick a player from both sides. They're all really long shots to do it first. So those are fun ones to look.
I think I'd go with Jacob.
Me too. Myself. Those are the ones I lose the most money on. Those are the ones that sucker me in.
Well, you mix one in here and there just to have fun with it.
Yeah, you have to. I want to talk a little bit about the Ravens backfield
Yes.
because I, as a Mark Ingram fangirl, who Mark Ingram single-handedly won me so many leagues last year, not doing so hot this year. And I have such a hard time getting a vibe on this backfield. And all of a sudden, Gus Edwards is a factor.
Yeah, they ran him very effectively last week. Very frustrating.
And the props that they are giving, rushing props on my book at least, they're not even giving Dobbins. They're giving Gus Edwards 40.5, Ingram 52.5, and then the leading rusher for the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson, 65.5. So it's a tricky backfield. It's a tricky backfield for fantasy. I mean, I've been benching Mark Ingram pretty much every week, and I hate doing it because what if he scores? But it's hard to, it's hard to watch Gus Edwards get all this run when you drafted Ingram in the, 5th round. So curious, Emil, your take. If you had to kind of bet the over, I guess, on the receiving for any of these backs, I mean, do you just play it safe and go at Lamar Jackson?
Yeah, that's a difficult one. And then Dobbins is, they're trying to put him in there here and there. So I was just stunned, how much. And Edwards is very effective. That's the problem with that team. They're a running team, and they don't mind spreading it around. The question is, are they going to get enough to make one of those work? I need to go over and look at the points allowed rushing. Let me do that real quick while I babble. Running back, points allowed.
I'll pull it up too.
Worst case, where's Washington at? They're right in the middle, 17th worst. Good. Pardon?
I said the Washington front seven is very good, but it doesn't matter because Lamar Jackson, he gets out of the pocket, it opens, it's just they have to overcompensate for him. It kind of opens things up for the running backs.
And this is strictly a rushing prop, not a total yardage prop, rushing receiving.
No, but we don't. They're not even offering a rushing and receiving prop for these running backs in this game.
Yeah. They're being tough this week. I don't really like all these. I don't see, I don't.
Well, it's week 4. It's week 4. The book is adjusting. They're not just working off of last year's stats anymore. Yeah. They're smart. They make my mornings crazy. That's for sure.
Yeah, I may be tempted to go with Ingram on one of those, but I wouldn't do it with a lot of excitement that it's going to actually happen. But
right,
he's got the talent.
Ingram, and I thought he was the RB1. I thought that they were just going to bell cow him again, and I think it was like 2 weeks before the season. The offensive coordinator came out and was like, it's going to be a committee, it's going to be a joint effort. And, of course, I'm like, yeah, coach speak. And, my God, was he telling the truth.
Yeah, that is let me just go look at last week's box while we chat. Yeah, they're telling the truth so far this year. They are definitely mixing it up.
Yeah, it's tough.
Last week was a tough week. They didn't have that many rushes. Lamar only got 9. This was against Kansas City, week 3. Edwards got 4. Ingram got 7. Dobbs only got 1, but I think Dobbs caught a couple balls. Let's go down here and look. Dobbs had 4 catches, 4 targets, so, his yardage is more, and he's getting more in the passing game, more touches in the passing game. These aren't looking exciting, but again, they are playing Washington, and Washington has a half-decent rushing defense. I don't know. I don't think it's not jumping out at you. It's not saying, wow, play Ingrams or whatnot. What was Lamar's over and under?
64.5.
I'd take that
64. One. Yeah, I think
just go with Lamar.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, not Evans, sorry, I'm looking ahead. For what it's worth, Ingram's on my bench this week, that's for sure. And then
Darn.
The last running back I'm looking at here is Eckler. They have his receiving yards a little low for me in this game. I think it's safe to assume these Chargers are going to be playing from behind. Really like what we're seeing out of Herbert, and they have Eckler's receiving line at 35.5, and I really like that over.
Boy, I
like it far. I like it far more than his receiving line of 49.5. I think this is going to be an an Eckler receiving day, and I definitely want to see that this week. Other side of the ball, the book definitely likes Ronald Jones this week. They have him at 68.5. So anyone who was a off-season Rojo truther, that looks like it may be coming to fruition sooner than later.
Yeah, well, obviously with Fournette ruled out early in the week, we know this is the guy, and 64.5. That's a pretty good area for his estimates.
Sure, it's less than 80 yards, and for a running back who's pretty much going to have control of that backfield in terms of touches, you like to see a line that's less than 75 even. So I like that line a lot, and a couple receivers I like in that game too. That's a game that I'm going to be targeting in general this week. Looking at Keenan Allen versus Mike Evans. Godwin, toast again. The book has the prop between Evans and Keenan Allen, who's going to have the most receiving yards. They've got, wow. The book is too scared to offer a receiving yard prop on Mike Evans. There's no receiving yards prop on Mike Evans, just that one bet. They've got Allen at 61.5 yards.
Wow. We predict him to hit 62 yards.
Who, Allen?
Yeah, Keenan Allen.
Ooh.
I don't know. I would. That would be a fun bet. I think against it's at Tampa Bay, but you got. I guess the big question is this rookie, the rookie quarterback. Is he going to be able to play? This game where people are now looking at his tape. He's a rookie. He's only had, 2 games experience roughly. He's going to go into Tampa Bay against Brady. It's got to be intimidating. So you've got to decide, do you think that guy... Now, he could be just throwing to Allen because that's his comfort zone. That's the experience. Of course, the tight end too. But that could work. That could be an interesting bet.
Could, and Emil, I would argue it's almost as intimidating to go into Tampa against Bruce Arians as it is against Tom Brady. I mean,
that's a good point.
That guy he's just such a good coach, and that defense, I'm sure they've been looking at this all week, like, oh, let's welcome the kid to the NFL. It's
sure.
It could be a tough game for him, but the hope is that Tampa Bay gets out to an early lead, maybe a 2-score lead, and we're just going to abandon the run game and just throw the ball. That's the hope there.
That's probably what's going to happen. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, that's again the hope. And then tight ends. Lots of interesting tight ends, I think, this weekend. And one, I have to have my homer moment, if we will. It's Dalton Schultz. And, I really believe that Cowboys tight end is just a valuable position. We saw it with Jarwin, and now we're seeing it with Schultz, where he's just stepping right in, and he's a factor in the offense. And what's interesting for me is, again, I was looking a lot this week at team target share. Now that we have a couple of games in the books, we're starting to establish usage with players, right? So the Cowboys offense in general, you've got Amari Cooper, he's leading the pack. He's got a 25% target share. And then it's all super close. You've got Ezekiel Elliott at 16%, CeeDee Lamb at 15%, Schultz at 14%, and then Michael Gallup at 13%. So it's basically, in terms of target share, Amari Cooper is the guy. And then everything else is nearly even spread out. So when I look at that, I look at Schultz, I look at the matchup. They're playing the Browns. The Browns gave up 5 catches to Mark Andrews, 7 to our guy Drew Sample, and then 4 to Logan Thomas. On our website, they're 29th against fantasy tight ends in scoring. It just correlates to prop betting. The line's at 3.5. I really like it for Schultz this week. I really like his reception line to hit over. And I'm curious, again, if you have a read on Dalton Schultz.
Yeah, I think there's a chance this game could be a little higher scoring than you would think, because Dallas has been giving up a lot. Cleveland's got a lot of talent. Maybe it's a chance now for Baker to finally, have a good game. They've running a lot, so hopefully Dallas will slow down that run and they'll pass. I think you've got one there. I think it would be fun to see what Schultz can do, and we've got him at 4 catches for 36 yards. But that game could go a little higher than your stereotypical conservative estimate. At home in Dallas, that helps a little bit. I like that. I like that bet.
And the book is definitely the book is definitely adjusting to Dak Prescott. I mean, you don't usually see a ton of lines over 299.5 yards for a quarterback. Yeah. They've got him at 320.5 and 2.5 touchdowns. So if you have Dak Prescott in your fantasy leagues, the book thinks he's going to have a pretty good day today. Yeah. So feel good about that, I would say.
That's a good one.
I'm just looking at that line, and it's. And then another tight end I want to talk about who, for me, is more of a slot receiver, going back to that Seahawks-Dolphins game, is Gesicki. Love the way he's used in the end zone. Seahawks are vulnerable against the tight end. This is a game, just like you had said about Dallas-Cleveland, I think the over is going to smash in this game. What I love about Ryan Fitzpatrick is he just doesn't care, and he goes for it. He's not one of these guys who wants to methodically march down the field. He's not afraid, to throw the bomb, and he never has been. It's gotten him in trouble in the past, which is why you have these two versions of him. Yeah. But if we have that Thursday Night Football Fitzpatrick from 2 weeks ago, there's going to be fireworks in this game. They've got Gesicki's line at 45.5. I don't necessarily love his receiving yardage line, but what I'm looking at is for him to score. He's Fitzpatrick's one of his first looks in the red zone, and his scoring prop. If you think he scores first, if you think he's the first touchdown scorer in that game, it's plus 1,300. If you think he scores a game-winning touchdown for them, last touchdown of the game, also plus 1,300. But just to score, this is a bet I really like. Just to score for Gesicki, plus 165. So if you laid $100, you'd get back 165. It's not. I think it's a pretty good bet for a tight end.
Excellent bet. I like that. They have been using him at the goal line. We have 10 zone stats. I don't have them up in front of me, and I don't want to waste the time to go get him. But I bet they're really high. One of the last games, he only caught like one ball, and it was for a touchdown at the goal line. So that's a good example of what you're looking there. I like that bet. That is very good.
I do. I like him to score this week. I really, really do.
Home team player, which I think gives you a little frosting on the cake.
And home underdog. When the numbers tell you this team is going to lose by a decent number of projected to lose by a decent number of points, that's when we get the Fitzpatrick that we want for fantasy. That's when we get the guy who's just throwing the ball. And Gesicki, he runs so many routes out of the slot. The production hasn't materialized in that sense, but the opportunity's there. It's going to click. And again, I love his usage in the red zone. I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick takes those back shoulder darts at him, and he's just not afraid to go up and get them.
That's very good. So are we going to get the magic Fitzpatrick or the tragic Fitzpatrick today?
Fitzmagic. We need it.
Fitzmagic.
Tragic. It stinks. Nobody wants to see that. And
no tragedy.
I
still love the guy. Fun. The day he retires, of course, he's probably retired 2 or 3 times already and came back. But Fitzpatrick is just too much fun to watch. He's just having fun, and he, every once in a while he has a great game, and every once in a while he doesn't. But I asked my wife if I look like him, and she said no, he's got a better.
A little more, just a little more, and you'll get.
I've got to get this cut. This is a COVID thing. I went to get my hair cut at wherever, it doesn't matter where I went, and they sat me down in the chair, and I said, yeah, I want this. And they said, oh, we don't cut beards right now because of COVID. And I said, well, I ain't paying you to cut this. So I got up and left. That was funny.
Just grow it out Fitzpatrick style.
Yes.
And my favorite thing about him, Oh, no. My favorite thing about him, Emil,
Yeah.
goal line, he is just not afraid to just dive in there. No fear. It's great to see.
That is great.
And then just the last tight end that I think we have to talk about because he's back this week is George Kittle. I don't believe that the Niners would roll out an asset like Kittle if he wasn't 100%. I think he's got to be all systems a go. The book, in my opinion, has his line. They're really taking the injury into account far more than I am. They've got it at 52.5. I think Kittle could flirt with 100 yards in this game. I really do. I think he's going to be so fired up to be back out there, and they really feed off of his energy. His reception line, 4.5. I'm fine betting the over on both of those. I'm also fine betting the over on Kittle. Not the over, the prop on Kittle to have more receiving yards than Zach Ertz. I'm all in on Kittle this week. Like I said, I just don't. He's too valuable for them to have rushed him back out there.
Yeah, I like that bet. At home against Philadelphia, that's nice. Pardon?
Yeah. I said maybe he could have played last week, and San Francisco's like, let's not rush it. This guy is just too valuable to our team to risk re-injury. So I think he's 110% and just going to come out a big focal point in this offense.
Yeah, he's Philadelphia has given up some things. Obviously, they Hebron got 3 for Los Angeles. They've had passing touchdowns in all 3 games against Washington Raiders, or the Rams, and Cincinnati. So, yeah, I like that bet. That's a good one. Very clever. I'm a little surprised. 50 some odd yards, but he's a tight end, but he's really wide receiver 1 for the 49ers.
Exactly.
So I like that bet.
This isn't a prop bet that I'm able to find, but I've been looking. And it's over-under weeks until Carson Wentz is benched for Jalen Hurts.
You're going to throw
the
a
turnovers
in
are
there?
a problem.
So you think he's lost his edge in your mind?
It's so hard for me as a fan, because I hate the
Dallas fan.
No, but I truly think he came out of North Dakota State, right? A smaller, not one of these big colleges where he absolutely lit it up. He came in, he had that great rookie year. I think he's always been a little bit overrated. I think Jared Goff's been a little bit overrated too in his career. And I think with these quarterbacks is the nature of the position is you have to pay them a lot of money. And when you give Carson Wentz $100 million, when you give Jared Goff $100 million, you expect certain things. And he gets the team to the playoffs, and then his backup, tends to come in and take it from there. So I don't know. I don't know if he's lost his edge. I don't know what it is with Wentz.
Well, you got to also recognize, Alshon Jeffrey's been out.
Yeah.
His rookie has been out. Rieger. You got Ward is like his number 1 receiver. He's lost his second tight end, and on that team, a second tight end's pretty good. Those are a lot of things to give up, but I still just see the guy. He just doesn't seem like he's crisp right now. He seems like he's doubting himself.
I was going to say it seems more mental, right, rather than skill with Carson Wentz. The mistakes, they seem mental to me. But you have Miles Sanders, right? Ride him, get through the rough patch by riding him if that's what it takes.
By the way, do you see any props for Ward at receiver?
Let's see.
Right, receiver,
we sure do.
Or targets or whatever.
We sure do. We have him at 4.5. Book has him at 4.5 receptions and 48.5 yards. Now, given the state of that receiving core, you kind of have to like that. 48.5.
Yeah, that's not bad. At San Francisco, a little scary, but yeah, he should be the, he or Ertz should end up getting the most catches in that game.
Now there is they have receiving yard pick a player like we've talked about in a few of the other games on this slate. They've got more receiving yards, McKinnick or Sanders. Kittle or Ertz, and then Ward or Ayuk, Brandon Ayuk. So,
that's a curious.
It's an interesting.
One.
Yeah,
I don't know if I would take
guys.
Ward there because with Kittle back, maybe I would push to go with Ward there. Assuming you can get a good number on how much money you make per bet.
It's not. You need to lay a lot of money to. It's almost like an even money.
Okay, well that's not as much fun.
No. And that's all I got. But is there anything you're
Well, I've already thrown a few out. Like Parker's an interesting character. Is there any interception props? Like how many interceptions a player will throw?
Oh yeah.
Problem is that's a hard one. It's probably 1.5 where you got to assume a quarterback's going to throw two interceptions, which is probably a harder bet to make.
Yeah, and we love fantasy football. We hate interceptions.
That we don't even think about it.
No. But of course, not to pick on the kid, but I immediately go to Daniel Jones.
Yes.
And
wonder what the prop is on that.
So here we go. So in that game, they've got Jared Goff. The line is 0.5, so it's is he going to throw a pick or not, right? Daniel Jones, 1.5. Is he going to throw 2 interceptions? Is he going to throw 2 interceptions or not? Poor kid.
Goff is curious. All he's got to do is throw 1, although he's probably fairly low. That would tempting. What about Bridgewater? Carolina against Arizona. Is there a prop on interceptions there? There
is, but very quickly, Emil.
Yes.
I'm getting suckered into putting a couple bucks on Daniel Jones to throw 2 picks.
Let's stop and make our bet here. We got to get. Let me just
place that bet real quick. Okay. Done.
It's too bad it doesn't add fumbles in there because that would make it more juicy.
Just a turnover prop.
Yes.
2's a lot, but there's a profit boost thing on that, so whatever. I threw a couple bucks on it. All right, Teddy Bridgewater. Let's get to him real quick.
Yeah, what do you got on him?
All right. Where is the Panthers?
You probably don't even have them on there.
Yeah, am I crazy, or is this game just not on the slate? Nothing for the Panthers. Wow.
Well, he would be an interesting bet for interceptions, but I guess we can't get that. So I was just kind of trying to look at Burrows. Is Burrows a half bet? Try check Burrows.
Let's check on Burrow. I mean, he throws the ball enough. Let's see.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. If it's less than 1.
Both him and Minshew. It's are they going to throw a pick or not? The line is 0.5.
I tell you what, that's tempting for me. I mean, I love the guy.
It is.
And he did throw 61 passes a couple weeks ago and didn't throw an interception, if I recall. So, but he's still a rookie. It is a home game, but that is a tempting one. And it's just 1. All it takes is 1. So that makes it even more tempting. Yeah. Jacksonville,
cool.
That would be a tempting bet. Like you said, though, it's hard for us fantasy people to predict that. Unless we're like, let's say I'm a Jacksonville fan, and I really think they're going to chew him up. Anyway, that may be interesting attack.
If you're going against Burrow in your fantasy league, it's a nice way to double down. Bet him to throw the pick, too.
That would be good. Well, fantastic. There were some tough ones today. There's some good ones, and there's a lot of ones that you want to bet. But the line is close, so it's going to be tough.
I suspect it'll get increasingly difficult as the weeks go on.
Darn. Well, fantastic. Anything else you want to add?
No, that's all I got for this week. Plan accordingly, everyone, for all these postponed games. And if you like to bet like I do, I'm certainly betting today as if I'm not going to be able to bet for 2 weeks. I just have a feeling that the league could possibly go into like a 2-week league-wide quarantine to kind of nip this in the bud. So
So
I'm
get a
not
couple
recommending
extra
this.
bets in while you're going. Well, the
Yeah.
interesting thing, Bob Harris and I talk about it a lot, is they have got a nice window of about 4 to 5 weeks where they can take a couple weeks off and just shift the schedule and shift the Super Bowl and keep it a 16-game season. So they've got options here. They can play it safe and take a bye week or two off for the whole league, and everything adjusts and everybody's fine. And I was joking with Bob about this. If this happens anytime soon, I could see all of a sudden second half best ball leagues popping up everywhere, where you've got a chance
Yes.
to sit back. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yes.
Because
Please,
what is this,
make it
week
happen.
4? There's still 12 weeks left, or 11 weeks left, whatever it is. A bunch of weeks left. You could have redo leagues for 10 weeks. That would work out really nicely, especially best ball.
Would be wonderful. Yeah, I'm not in charge, but if I was, I would say after this week, shut it down for 2 weeks and let the league spend the next 2 weeks figuring out a bubble, and that's it.
Yeah.
No more outbreaks. Just figure out some sort of a bubble, limit travel, however you have to adjust the schedule. Let's get it done, because they can't just keep postponing games. Not when we have guys we need like Derrick Henry and Cam Newton and
Yeah.
James.
Well, they've done a great job. We made it through 3 weeks very, very clean. But we do have, they do have options to move, to have buys. They've got plenty of time to do that Super Bowl. This can work, and so they could take advantage of that. They're not stuck, with having to lose games. They don't have to lose games. They can
No.
they can just take a week or two off and just move everything down. So, I think they've done a good job, and I think that's all going to work out. But they have opportunities to adjust. So,
Yeah, and it's early enough in the season. So
yeah. Well, wonderful. Well, thank you. Great stuff.
thank you. Good luck today.
Yeah, you too. Good luck at the bets.